The word substance applies to what some people will just call drugs. Why we use the word substance is that if we just say drugs or drug abuse, people will be thinking of maybe pharmaceuticals or maybe cocaine and heroin. But if you say substance abuse, it captures all the other substances like alcohol, like tobacco, like organic solvents, and so forth.
In Ghana, the PNDC Law 236 has failed to impact on the elevated levels of national drug use between 2002, 2003, 2010, and 2014.
West Africa actually has a drug problem. For so many times, we've always referred to the region as a transiting region. But today, we've come to realize that West Africa is not just a region for drug trafficking, but a region where illicit drugs are also consumed.
The situation in Kenya for people who use drugs is quite alarming. It has been on the increase over the years. And the biggest problem that we're having now is the heroin use.
Lifetime prevalence of illicit drugs use rose nearly to 50%, whilst past years' prevalence also increased over the same period. According to the UNODC statistics, 37,000 people in Africa die annually from diseases associated with the consumption of illegal drugs.
I don't think anybody will say, I want to be an addict. That's very rare for it to happen. Usually you become an addict because for any number of reasons you continue to use a substance that is addictive. These substances are known as psychoactive substances because they have psychological effects, which is why when we say substance abuse, we're talking about those psychoactive substances, not substances that do not have any effect on behavior. Like taking an aspirin, for example. Aspirin doesn't come into the picture.
Substance abuse has two levels. One is neurological, where you crave for it. It is not your will. You crave for it. And then when you actually now smoke the cigarette or drink the alcohol or take the drug in, you actually have chosen a method to satisfy your craving. So there's an underlying factor and a behavioral factor.
I've been through addiction for the past 15 years. And that's so far as I can remember, but then I can recall from like childhood experimenting some few stuffs.
Young people are exposed to all kinds of drugs because their friends are using drugs, because their parents, their siblings may be drinking, may be smoking, tobacco, maybe using cannabis, so they're exposed. And then some of them will also want to experiment with these substances. Many of those who experiment with drugs stop after the first use or maybe the second use, but some of them continue to use these substances, maybe because of the network that they belong to, the friends that they have. If the friends are using, there is a likelihood that they will also be using. And once they continue to use, in time, it becomes an addiction because the brain has now settled to that situation of having the drug.
When it comes to drug use, many of the people who find themselves in addiction or abusing drugs become petty criminals. Some may not even go into crime, but the tendency for them to go into crime because they have to fund that habit is there. You know, so we need to address that. But I would not say that people who use drugs are criminals.
For so many years, the response to illicit drug trafficking and use within the region has focused more on law enforcement in terms of interdiction, arresting offenders, arresting drug traffickers and drug consumers, you know, trying to, you know, show that we are harsh on drugs and bringing about punitive measures to control drugs within the region.
People are taking in what they call psychedelic drugs, LSD. People are taking all sorts of, it's a wide range. And some of it is poly-use. They take a little bit of cocaine, take a little bit of crack, take a little bit of even prescription medicines, tramadol and all that. So substance abuse is not only abusing illegal drugs, but it also includes abusing even illicit drugs, which have not been prescribed for you. And it is very, very pervasive, extremely pervasive. I think the holier than thou people make it seem as if marijuana is a big problem. But tobacco and alcohol are the greatest problems in this country and in West Africa.
Been through a lot. I've lost education, I've lost my finances, part of my family, and most of all, social respect, yeah, among other things.
According to the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, Africa's rising illegal drug consumption can be attributed to the political instability as well as porous borders. West Africa is completely weak in terms of border control, and the big drug cartels from Colombia and Latin America have chosen Africa as a way to reach Europe.
We know that we've been punishing drug users for many years. The United Nations conventions have sometimes been wrongly interpreted to mean that we should punish people, send them to jail. If you look at the laws of some countries, being caught with a small quantity of cannabis, marijuana, can send you to jail for 15 years. I personally think, and many people increasingly think, that this is wrong-headed because it does no good. You can take a young man of 18, 19, put him in jail, and he comes out worse than he was when he got into jail. So we are not benefiting anything. He may even become a drug addict because of that experience.
Arrested and put behind bars. I can count just a few cells nationwide that I haven't been to. Maybe 2-3 regions that I haven't been to their cells. Apart from that, it's a normal routine for me.
I don't support weed smoking. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. Neither do I support cigarette smoking. Neither do I support alcoholism. But why is it that we are regulating alcohol and cigarettes? Why is it that we are regulating it? That's what I'm saying. The science must tell us in this country, people die more of alcohol and cigarette smoking than marijuana. We must discourage people from trying the marijuana as much as possible. We must discourage them. Because people have different responses to psychoactive substances. We must discourage them. But you don't preach down their throats.
Society stigmatizes drug users for a reason, because they are unproductive, because many of them might end up, becoming petty criminals because they need to fund the drug use and all of that. It's not something that society wants to encourage. And so they stigmatize drug users. So instead of, and think that they must be punished for it, That has to change.
Basically, what support means is that instead of saying, let's punish this young man or this woman, we should offer services that will assist in the person stopping or at least reducing drug use.
Addiction on its own, it's not a moral issue, okay? But then no amount of jail sentence can actually relieve a person who is diseased from alcoholism or addiction. So experience from jail actually doesn't contribute anything in making me stop.
So what has to be done is that the resources that we put in a lot of resources into criminal justice, let us look at putting some of that into rehabilitation.
My name is Byron Merriweather, and I'm the technical director of the House of St. Francis here in Asherman. We have a capacity of 40 beds that we hold, and currently we're taking no more than 35 people right now, but we have a capacity for 40. It has gotten expensive since we opened it back in 2012, in August 1st of 2012. We started at 250 Ghana because we're basically driven by fees from the client that comes in the door. We don't have any donations or any grant money or any national government money that comes to subsidize us.
It is important as a region we begin to look at promoting policies that are grounded in public health, policies that focuses on development issues within the region, policies that focuses on public health, on security of lives and property, of community, policies that aims to protect the human right of people, and not just about arresting offenders, not just about seizures or celebrating the worth or amount of drugs that we have been able to seize.
Look, why would you put somebody in jail for 5 years for a joint of cigarettes, for a joint of drugs, right? You go and learn more crime in prison. And how much did a joint cost? How many times did you have to take him to prison? From remand to court, remand to court. The number of people who had to, public servants, that in other words, court clerks and investigators who had to deal with the petrol up and down. How much did that thing cost? You waste more money. You spend about 4,000 Ghana cedi in the final analysis to something that costs only 1 cedi. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. When you could have done, introduce services, introduce a program of sentencing which is alternative to incarceration.
It actually makes me do more stuff, learn more stuff from experiences that I gather from people in there, and then I want to practice and experiment more, actually improve on what I do. You know, like have a reflection, of what I did wrong, and then pick up a few things that I can get from the people in jail, and then add up to mine.
Drug use or the addiction is a disorder that needs to be dealt with sound public health policies.
Health is a right. It's a human, look, it's even part of the Universal Declaration of Rights, right? Health to all, it is our right. So if somebody is sick when he's dependent on drugs, well, if he's sick, then he has a right to health. So you promote health policies, in other words, drug policies that have a public health approach and that are centered and grounded in human rights. Harm reduction services with all the 9 ingredients, elements of it. You have things like opioid substitution, needle syringe exchange programs Those are the things we need to do because the guy is addicted.
Well, this is a social model type treatment. And we primarily introduce the people to Alcoholics Anonymous, orientate them to Alcoholics Anonymous. We use the 12-step approach, which is an abstinence-based approach. That means a person must abstain from all alcohol and drugs. And then we provide therapeutic community type sessions, group sessions with the members. And we also acclimate them to going to outside support group meetings, at least 3 times a week. And so that after treatment, they can continue their recovery and recovering process, by going to outside meetings.